Kincaid and Dallas.
On hold, just so worked out timing-wise, on a day where we spent a good amount of time learning something about Dallas we had never known before this moment in the 4 years that I have known Dallas. You've been with Dallas for 18 years, Garrett.
Yeah, I didn't even know this.
That she, in one of her divorces, had a contested stuffed beaver that her and her ex fought over. That was a hot button issue, and she lost this stuffed beaver in the divorce.
Didn't get the beaver?
And I can hear the bitter beaverness. Wait, no.
The beaver bitterness.
Thank you. Jarrod, hi, good morning.
That, reverse it.
Yeah.
Good morning. Stuffed beaver. That sounds interesting. Actually sounds like some of my adultery cases in my divorce. So what are we talking about
No,
here,
we're talking about an actual Dallas. This thing was on the side of the road. She picked it up. She put it in her Corvette. It was dead. She then put it in the freezer, waited for it to be taxidermy. This is a true story she said earlier. It's going to be on the podcast, Kincaid and Dallas, where you get yours momentarily. But I'm glad you're here right now, Jarrod, because I know that it gets super, super personal. And we've talked about this before. When one person has something and they know it's that I'm going to push your button. This means nothing to me, but I know you want it, so I'm going to fight for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that coveted beaver, that's a high dollar item, and,
Yep.
and really it's not, right? And like you said, people have these emotional material items and they don't really want it. They just don't want the other side to have it. And so we argue over it and we spend money. And by the time we're done arguing over it, they spent more money arguing over the item than they could just go out and replace it,
Jarrod is a divorce attorney at Oxendine Law. It's your law firm, and this is what you do for a living. And you're happily married, which is the most interesting part. You've got a great marriage. I think you've learned so much from the people that you've seen in court and defended and we're up against that you know what to do, and more importantly, what not to do in
what
marriage.
not to do.
That's exactly right. 15 years and going strong, and I see a lot of examples of what not to do on a daily basis, so I'm constantly getting reinforcements. But I also, I met my wife on a blind date, and I always tell people she's still blind, and I definitely married up, and so I know if this one goes south, I'm not going to be able to replace her. So
Dude.
I try to be a good boy.
Same with myself and Aaron. It was a blind date. It was a friend of a friend introduced. It was all over. Hey, there's nobody who likes coffee as much as you except for this girl. Y'all should meet. I called her, hadn't seen her when she came to the door. I started my car and I almost drove off. But then Jarrod, I did the worst thing you could do on a date. I brought friends with me because I thought my wife would have potentially been psycho.
Why would you do that?
So I had friends in the back seat to help me in case I needed it on the date, which again, I can't believe I'm still married, but that's what happened.
Well, I've done that before, and these were in my single days. So I used to have my friends kind of go in the background. I had a couple good buddies, and they would be sitting at a booth, and she didn't know they were there. And I would say, guys, if during the middle of this date I turn my collar up, that means
That's the signal.
That means I need you to come in, and you need to intercede and tell me there's some emergency, or we got to go somewhere and rescue me.
Dude.
But if the collar stays down, guys, after
Brilliant.
about 20 minutes, get out of here and leave me alone.
Genius.
Brilliant,
Amazing.
Jarrod. That is amazing. I was watching something the other day online, and I thought of a question to ask you. Have you, and I'd like to stump you too, have you had a client or been up against a client who they were in a situation where there was adultery because they ran into someone famous and they said, I'm never going to have this chance ever again. And the famous person hit on them and they went with the advances and they committed adultery. And then they went back to their spouse and said, I've got to tell you, I did this. I'm not going to keep it from you. It's never going to happen again. This was a bucket list item. I want this to be my hall pass. And the other person's like, I'm not having it.
I like that. It's creative. I'll tell you the closest I've come to that. I've had a situation where I had a wife and there was this very wealthy guy and he was kind of high profile, not really celebrity, but close to it. Mm-hmm. And she literally went to her husband and said, look, you and I need to get a divorce on paper. I'm going to go marry this guy. I'm going to stay married to him for a while, and then I'm going to get a divorce. I'm going to take all this money from him, and then we're going to remarry, and now I have just secured millions of dollars for us. Of course, he didn't go for it. That's kind of pie in the sky. That was probably her excuse to try and go out and get a hall pass, but that's how she delivered it to this guy, and I think he considered it, but then he wised up.
Yeah, good. That also sounds like some kind of fraud.
Yeah.
That can't be legal.
It is.
People will try.
It is. And then, you think these things are going to go, it's more of a fantasy, right? You have these fantasies in your head and you think it's going to go swimmingly, and then you go out and maybe the person doesn't have the money you thought they had. Or, he's probably having you sign a prenuptial agreement if he's smart so that you can't, fraud him and take his million. So I think she was just trying to play out her fantasies and get the hall pass.
If you feel like you're in a situation where you want to make this the very last Thanksgiving that you have to see your in-laws, how do we get a hold of you?
Go online, oxlawfirm.com, or all of our social media. You can give us a call, 770-497-8688. Your initial consultation is on me.
Jarrod, a pleasure. We will talk to you soon. Have a great Thanksgiving. We're thankful for you, man. That's Jarrod Oxendine from Oxendine Law. Take care, bud.